Hey, Ralph, by the way, I stumbled across your website, and I really think with a few tweaks, we could really drive more traffic to your website and get you more fresh leads.
Nice.
So please contact me as soon as possible. Why do I get that message every 5 minutes through a contact form from one of my websites?
Because in the social media space, there is this movement about telling people or teaching people and training people on how to do list building, like aggressive list building. So what these lists are all trying to do is get their lists to be as big as possible. And the only way to do that is to have all this stuff be really, really aggressive. I get those too every day. Every hour I get a bunch of them.
Wow. Barry, of course, Barry the maintenance guy here is with me. Not Barry White. It's not Barry White, everybody. It's not Barry White. It's Barry the maintenance guy in my old building. He's an actual guy. Barry, do you do that? Do you spam people through their contact forms on their websites to get more leads?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
He's honest. I like that about him. He's so honest.
I'm telling you. Jeez, Barry.
That's frightening.
I know, dude. Let's do this.
Hey, Chris, let me know when you start recording.
Yes. Oh. Are you? Oh, no. Oh, you got me, dude.
Again.
Oh, I forgot that you always do that. We'll be like 10 minutes into a show. You'll be like, Chris, when are we going to start the show, actually? Wow. See? This is excitement. Let's do it. Session 56. Yes. Yes, we are.
Let me give it a shot.
Back in the saddle a week early. Ralph, how about that? You tell the fans you're going to be back on August 3rd, and you drop one the week before. Hello.
I haven't finished my grunting yet. Hold on. All right, we're good.
Your mic is distorting a little when you get loud.
Yeah, it does that. I think my level's a little.
No, it's yeah. If just leave it where it is for now, though. I like it. It's like gritty. It's like you're singing a helmet song, like a helmet cover. You're just,
Well, I'm not a world-class audio engineer like you, so you can't blame me.
It actually it's not that. It's just that, you actually are a very kind of soft-spoken guy on the mic. You're kind of soft-spoken.
I am. I have a sultry, sexy voice.
Yeah, that's right. So, but when you get on this show and we start things and you're going, yelling and screaming and booyah, that's what happens.
I'm going to come clean with you. Are you ready? I'm going to come clean with you. So here's what I think is happening because so I am now an alumni of Podcast Engineering School. And I think what happened, Chris, is that when I got my F8, so we're recording now, I'm recording it through my F8. I'm recording your track on my end. We're doing a double ender.
Right.
However, when I first bought my F8, I was tinkering with like all the settings. And as I'm going through all the menus, I can see where I started making some adjustments, and I had no idea what they were. And now that I've participated in Podcast Engineering School, do you like how I'm plugging this, by the way? Now that I've participated in Podcast Engineering School, I know what these things are. So I think what I'm going to do, Chris, now that I'm kind of looking at this device in front of me, is I'm going to flash this back to the initial settings, like what do they call them, manufacturer settings, and just start over, because I think I just tinkered with this thing too much. And now that I understand how it all works, I think I can probably make this thing sound better.
That is a really good point. So, by the way, everyone who's hearing your voice, this is Ralph M. Rivera.
Podcast Engineering School alumni.
Yes, class of 17A.
That's
and
right.
Host of Carbon-Based Business Units with his lovely wife, Carolyn.
Let me ask you a question. Why am I an alumni of 17A? Why? Because in college, when I'm teaching, I teach at Manhattan College in New York City. I teach web development, and I have students sometimes that graduate in the fall and some students that graduate in the spring.
Right.
But they're always the class of 17. So why are you making me the class of 17A?
Well, good question, because in the fall, starting September 26th of this year, which is still 2017, we're going to do another batch of Podcast Engineering School. Those are going to be 17B.
But wouldn't we all collectively be the class of 2017?
You could be. But don't you feel like with your classmates of 17A that you're like, like brothers in arms, like Green Berets or like Delta Force? Don't you feel this certain more camaraderie with them than these other people who you won't even know? Well, you will know them because actually we're all going to be in the same Slack group, which is awesome.
Yeah, we're all going to be simpatico. And besides, I've already talked to everybody from the A group, and we're just gonna cut all the people on the B group because we want to be the only graduating class of podcast engineering school. So everybody that ever graduates from podcast engineering school from now on will meet with a misfortunate accident.
Oh, well, I'll tell you what I love the most is that, especially in the Slack group, that you guys, the students, are really helping each other with questions and feedback. And I mean, we just started a channel called Podcast Episodes, where if you want feedback on a podcast episode that you produced, or, the levels or the EQ or anything, you could post it and we'll, some of the other members and me will check it out and give you a little feedback. It's just, there's so much going on there. But let me introduce this show. This is an actual session of the Podcast Engineering Show. So we are back a week early, and Ralph M. Rivera is here with me. Ralph is a good friend. He's also the creator of Podcasters Toolbox. We're going to talk more about that. But this is an actual session, so we're going to promote a lot of things, and or not promote. We're going to talk about a lot of things that are coming up, and we're also going to talk about plugins and everything. So let me go through the list of what we're going to cover today real quick. But first, if this is your first time hearing this show, you got to know that this is the Podcast Engineering Show, and my name is Chris Curran, and I produce podcasts for the likes of Forbes and Dun & Bradstreet and E+, as well as select business authors. And every week on this show, we really talk about the audio engineering aspects of podcast production. We really talk shop with podcast producers, engineers, and other specialists. And I have a background in audio engineering in the music business, actually. And so when I entered podcasting, I realized that a lot of podcasters don't have the fundamentals of audio engineering. They just don't have it. So that's a lot of what we talk about on this show. And if you implement the best of what you learn here, your podcasts will sound a lot better and you'll spend a lot less time producing them. And of course, everyone's favorite Barry is with me. Barry, you ready?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I'm telling you. All right. And so today, Ralph Rivera's here. We're going to have some fun. And some of the things we're going to talk about are, I'm going to mention some of the upcoming guests. Like I mentioned, I've already recorded a bunch of episodes. Just these episodes are so good. This is going to be crazy. The next 6 weeks. I'm going to read 2 fortune cookie messages, which I got at a Chinese restaurant, which befuddled me. Or what should I say? I couldn't grok the meaning, so I need help.
Grok. Wow.
You like that?
With your SAT words.
We're going to talk about the microphone test drive booth at Podcast Movement, which is happening in about a month in Anaheim, California. We're going to talk about the actual launching of Podcasters Toolbox. This is huge. And Ralph,
I can't wait to hear about that.
Oh, dude. All right. Well, you got to get Carolyn to fill us in. Anyway, also we're just going to mention carbon-based business units. That's your podcast show. We're going to do a little recap of Podcast Engineering School, the 17A batch, and you're not going to twist my arm to calling it the class of 2017, Ralph. It's 17A. You get a tattoo of it on your arm, 17A, okay?
I'm boycotting that.
We're going to preview Podcast Engineering School 17B briefly, and the recap of 17A and the preview of 17B are going to kind of be mixed together. We're going to talk about
Do I get to critique 17A?
Oh, yeah. I'm going to ask you for your candid feedback.
Nice.
Yeah.
This is where it all comes crashing down for you, Chris.
This is where my entrepreneurial dreams are foiled.
That's right.
So we're going to talk about your new headset setup. You made a switch, which we're going to talk about, to headsets. I'm going to mention my SonarWorks headphones and my tuned speakers. I'm just going to leave it there. That seems intriguing. And of course, my new plugins, which actually for the Podcast Engineering School students, I made it's like an hour-long bonus video of me going over all my new plugins, how they work, how they're awesome, and recommending 2 of them, which I think are really good for podcasters. And it's not just an EQ or a compressor. Those are the 2 those are the 2 items that every podcast producer needs. That's kind of obvious, EQ and compression. But these other 2 are just really awesome, and I really like them. So
I think you need a new segment on this show called "Things That Ralph Spent Money On Because Chris Told Him to Buy
It," and that Ralph loves dearly.
Right, that is true. You haven't missed yet.
I haven't missed yet. All right. So upcoming on this show, Billy O. He's a podcast host and a producer. Billy O. Alex Knight, the founder of Hologram Radio, and he's actually a product manager at FeedPress as well. Alex Knight. We got Steve Cherubino from Florida. Steve Cherubino, longtime podcaster. Jason Sanderson from the UK. Dude, you are not going to believe this episode. He's a recording engineer in the UK. He works on the Art of Charm show. Mind blown. All right, Travis Hill. He's the host of Navigate Life Radio, and he's the one who, I think it's podcastmike.com. He does reviews of podcasts and mics. Oh, that was a great session. And Michael Pedersen, the director of corporate history at Shure Incorporated. You want to know why it took the SM7B 35 years to take off? We cover it. There's so much we covered about not only Shure microphones, but just microphones in general. It was fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. All right, Ralph, explain this to me. I got this on a fortune cookie. All right? I should play some. Do I have any like little background music I could play while I'm reading this? Oh, I could play the Haunted Halloween one. This is going to be loud.
Wow, that's not creepy at all.
All right, I'm gonna play Halloween music, and there's the wind blowing, and I'm gonna read these fortune cookie messages. All right,
aren't these supposed to be like positive, like positive affirmations?
Dude, that's why I'm reading these. I have no idea what they mean. All right,
okay.
The first one. There's nothing more dangerous than an idea if it's the only one you have. I'll read it again. There's nothing more dangerous than an idea if it's the only one you have. What does that mean?
I think that's actually pretty clear. I think that what that's saying is if you're stuck in an ideology and you're not willing to hear other people's perspectives and learn to see other people's ideas and, maybe kind of empathize with the way that they look at the world, that could be a very, very dangerous thing.
Wow. Dude, you just broke it down.
I'm good that way.
Are you like a therapist?
I'm a Buddhist monk in my next life. There you go. Chris. Hey, Chris, do you have a middle initial?
Oh, no. Yes. F.
What's your middle initial?
F as in Frederick. That's actually my middle name.
All right, because I'm gonna do to you what you do to me, because every time you say my name, you always say Ralph M. Rivera.
Yeah, but you told me to do that because there's some porn star with Ralph with the same name.
Chris F. Curran.
No, Christopher. You got to use Christopher.
By the way, do you know that, what's his name? Dave Jackson over at School of Podcasting.
Love him.
Every once in a while, he slips and calls you Chris Curran.
Yeah, that's okay. That's normal.
Do a lot of people do that?
Yeah.
Huh.
A fair number of people do that.
I'm gonna mention it at Podcast Movement.
All right.
I'm like, you do not mispronounce my boy's name.
Time for the second fortune cookie that I don't understand from this Chinese restaurant here locally in Colorado Springs, Colorado, US of A, on the doorstep of Pikes Peak. All right, here it is. I'll read it. Utility is when you have plumbing. Luxury is when you have a pool. All right, I'll read it again. Utility is when you have plumbing. Luxury is when you have a pool.
I don't get that one.
Wow. All right, record scratch.
All right, we'll vote that one down. We'll vote the other one up. I like the other one.
Really? All right. So here's the thing. The microphone test drive booth at Podcast Movement. Look, Ralph, you're going to be there with Podcasters Toolbox. And
I will.
And we're going to talk about that in a second. But here's the microphone test drive booth. We're going to have a booth set up where there's going to be, well, on the title, it's going to say test drive 8 top-rated mics. But really, we're going to have 10 mics. But I'm not always sure that we're going to have 10, so that's why I put 8 in the title. Does that make any sense?
So you're going to have a guaranteed 8 microphones, but you might have more.
Right. The plan is 10 right now. We have 10. And actually, we had 11, but I had to cut one. One of them didn't make the team because I don't have 10 inputs. I mean, I don't have 11 inputs on my mixer.
Hey-oh.
So, unfortunately, there's one that got cut. All right, but here's the thing. When is the last time you got to sit down and try 10 podcasting microphones side by side and hear them with your own voice side by side and have someone there recording them all at the same level and making a recording and sending the recording to you later? So in the comfort of your own home, you can hear your voice on all these mics. I mean, this is too good to be true. I mean,
Who's doing this?
Who's doing this? Well, Mark Johansson did it at Podfest. Mark is a good friend. Mark Johansson, podcastgeargroup.org. That's his Facebook group. Of course, all you listeners, you're probably already a member of that group. But if you're not, go sign up. Podcastgeargroup.org. It's all about gear and sales and plugins, too, and all that. It's really good. Anyway, he did it at Podfest.
And he has fantastic hair.
Oh, you just need a picture of him on your wall, basically.
That's right.
Next to Ralph. Well, under Ralph, not next to.
Let me throw my 2 cents in here since I've already derailed you, apparently.
Okay.
So one of the things that I think that the podcasting industry suffers from is this groupthink mentality, which is why every podcaster out there has the Heil PR40 microphone.
Right.
But there are so many, and I've only recently started to even explore these ideas, especially after becoming an alumni of podcast engineering school, is the idea that there are a lot of microphones out there that are just as good, if not better, than the Heil PR40, and also probably a lot less expensive. And when you go into some of these very, very popular, very, very famous Facebook groups and Slack groups and these, all these little communities within the podcasting industry, there is this groupthink. And once you start listening to your voice on different microphones, you start to realize that your voice plus a microphone is always going to be different. People's voices just, I don't know what the right word is, but attenuate so differently on different microphones. And I've only just begun to appreciate that.
Yeah, it's called timbre, actually. It's the same note or the same word, but when two different instruments play it, it sounds completely different. Like a guitar can play an E note, and a tuba can play the same E note, but they sound completely different. I mean, it's the same note, but one sounds like a tuba, one sounds like a guitar. Same thing with people's voices. Everyone can say hello, but when you say hello, it's completely different than when I say hello. It has its own signature, its own frequency response, its own character. That's what the timbre is of a sound.
Right. One more thing. I had a little bit of a rude awakening when we were at Podfest down in Florida because I did an on-site interview with Daniel J. Lewis. And when he sat down in my booth to record with me, one of the things he said was, yeah, my voice doesn't sound as good on the PR40. And of course, we started talking about that and just the character of his voice. What was the word that you used, Chris?
Timbre?
The timbre of his voice. On a PR40, it just makes it sound much more sibilant. So you hear a lot of this in his voice.
Right.
But when you listen to his voice on any other microphone, it really sounds more mellow and smooth. So I'm beginning to really appreciate the character of each individual microphone. Let me ask you a question, Chris.
Yeah.
Do you think that the manufacturing process of microphones makes it so that your voice may sound different on two different, or rather, if you had two microphones and both of them were PR40s, is the manufacturing process good enough that those two microphones sound consistent, or would your voice sound different on both of those microphones?
Yeah,
given that they're both PR40s.
Yeah, it'll sound consistent. I mean, technically speaking, there may be very, very slight differences in frequency response and level, but it'll be very, very slight. So yeah, you can trust that every PR40 is going to basically sound the same. And every mic is going to sound the same as another one of its kind. All right, so what are the 10 mics, Ralph? The Shure SM7B, classic.
Yeah, that's the one that you like, right?
Well, it's a great one. I do like that one, yeah.
What mic are you using right now?
I'm using, it's the second one on the list, Electro Voice RE20.
Oh, your new one.
Yeah.
That's the one that you sleep at night with under your pillow, right?
Yes, and this is, so I bought an RE20, but then I bought a vintage RE20 from Mark Johansson. So this is actually a vintage one from the 80s, which they make RE20s a little different now. And some people think that the older ones sound a little better, which is why I got one. So anyway, the RE20, we're going to have a new one there. We're going to have a RE320, which, speaking of Daniel J. Lewis and Dave Jackson, they both use RE320s. And I'm going to make a bold statement here. Even before the microphone test drive, I think that the RE320 is probably, all things considered, probably the best podcasting mic. Now, again, that doesn't take into account the timbre of people's different voices. You still need to try them all and do it all. And I've actually never tried a 320 on my voice. But you know how like everyone, when people start podcasting, everyone just tells them to go buy a Blue Yeti, and don't bash Blue Yetis because it's on this list here. All right, I guess I was talking to myself.
If the Blue Yeti, the problem with that microphone, and I think this is true about probably every microphone on your list, it's not that they're necessarily bad or good, but it's that they're being misused. The Blue Yeti, you don't know how many times I've heard of people just putting a Blue Yeti in the middle of a very, very long table, and then two people sit on opposite sides of the table. And of course, what kind of audio quality do you think you're going to get out of that? Probably terrible, but right. You're going to get the same quality with any microphone. Right,
exactly. Misuse is a good way. So what I'm saying is RE320, very, very good. It has a high output. It has nice clear top end, so you don't have to EQ in more top end, and you don't have to crank the mic preamp too much. All right, fourth on the list is the Heil PR40. Got to have one of those. Fifth is the Blue Yeti Pro. And one of the differences between the Blue Yeti and the Blue Yeti Pro is that the Pro has an XLR output, which is good because the regular Blue Yeti is only USB. So I'm going to have a mixer. I need to plug it in XLR. So I needed a Blue Yeti Pro, which the fine folks at Blue already sent over. And I haven't tested it yet, but it's right here in front of me. And I'm going to test it and make sure it works and do all that. And we're going to have it right at the microphone test drive booth. The next one is the Samson Q2U. Here's one thing about this mic. You know how, and the next one, let me just say, the next one on the list is the Audio-Technica ATR 2100 USB, which is probably the most recommended podcasting mic by people who sort of know what they're talking about. It's the ATR 2100 USB. The Samson Q2U is very similar to that. It has USB output and XLR, which the ATR 2100 does too. That's why these two mics are very similar. They're very versatile. USB, you can plug it in USB, or you can plug it in XLR. And I would assume you could even do both. I don't even know, but probably doesn't matter. You probably would never need to do both. Anyway, so that Samson, they're either going to send me one or bring one there as well. And so I'm really interested to hear that mic, because that mic is even a little less expensive than the ATR 2100. So anyway, that's interesting. Number 8 on the list is the Sennheiser E835, which is a mic that I've loved for years because it's kind of like the SM58, but it's just a little more presence, a little higher output, and it just sounds a little better than an SM58. SM58s are a little bit dull in a way because... And in a way, that's why that's the most popular live microphone for like on stages and stuff, because it's a little dull. It actually doesn't feedback as much. It doesn't feedback as quickly because it doesn't have the really high frequencies boosted in it. But the E835 is obviously in terms of podcasting is a great little vocal mic. It's $99. I've recommended that to many of my clients. That's just a good one. Number 9 is the mics we learned about from Liza Miller, who does a podcast and frequently has 15 to 16 people on her show simultaneously in one room. Okay, so what she found was this 3-pack of microphones for $39. And they actually they sound fine. They sound good. They sound okay. It's the Behringer Ultra Voice XM1800S. And by the way, I'll have all this in the show notes, but you can also go to podcastengineeringschool.com and see the list. So that's good.
So, Chris, first of all, one of my absolute favorite episodes was that episode. But do you think that the quality that she got was a result of the microphone in and of itself, or do you think that the quality was because of the overall mix she got with all of the microphones combined?
Well, I think both. So it is pretty astonishing that she, in one room, mixed together that many mics through a mixer and recorded it basically in stereo. So she mixed it all live. She didn't record every mic on multi-track and then sit there inside her DAW later and gate every track and gate everyone's microphone and delete sections. She didn't do any of that.
So let me play devil's advocate then. How can you really practically then know what the quality of the microphone is? Because you're not really hearing the output in that case. You're hearing a lot of the mix.
Right, but that's what's amazing. In the mix, there's not much noise. You would think it would sound like a canyon or a hallway with all these mics open in one room. But it actually doesn't sound like that. It sounds okay. When one person talks, you can actually hear them. I mean, you hear the room a little bit, but not overly. Certainly not as much as a Blue Yeti in the middle of a table in a room. So so when people were talking, you could actually hear the tone of their voice. You could hear the quality of the recording, the mic. So
right.
And it's pretty good. It's a little hypercardioid. Anyway, come by the booth, check it out. And number 10, I wanted the Rode Broadcaster, but I decided on getting the Rode. They make a Podcaster as well. This is confusing. So they make a Rode Podcaster, which is USB. They make a Rode Procaster, which is the middle level there, which is the one we're going to have. We're going to have the Procaster, which is a dynamic mic. It's XLR. And then they make a Rode Broadcaster, which is actually a condenser. And that's the one that, Eric Levy and even Travis Hill coming up, you'll hear him talk about it. It's just supposed to be, it's a $400 mic, but it's just outstanding, apparently. And I really want to try the Rode Broadcaster. But I thought for the microphone test drive booth, most people aren't going to buy a Rode Broadcaster. They're not going to spend $400. So the Procaster is kind of like midway.
Sorry, I had to laugh at that comment considering how much money you make me spend.
Well, you're Ralph M. Rivera. You're the anomaly.
True.
You're an anomaly.
I'm probably more of a hobbyist than most people.
Yeah, no, you're into it. So anyway, we're gonna have the Rode Procaster. I've never heard that mic, but we're gonna have it, courtesy of BSW. Let's see if Chris and BSW can make friends. What do you think, Ralph?
I bought all of my Heil PR40s from BSW.
Oh yeah.
Hey, have you been to Rode's website recently?
No.
So listen to this. This is what it says on the Rode website right now. It's been there for a couple of days because I was doing some research about 3 or 4 days ago. It says, quote, important information about purchasing from Amazon in the U.S. Rode Microphones does not authorize, and then this is the organization, fulfilled by Amazon. We have purchased counterfeit Rode products using fulfilled by Amazon and highly recommend that you only purchase Rode products from authorized dealers. If you purchase any Rode microphone from an unauthorized dealer via fulfilled by Amazon, you will not receive any U.S. warranty or technical support. Wow. And then it gives you a link to some documentation. That's interesting.
That is interesting. Thank you for saying that. I did not know that.
Yeah, there's a lot of knockoff mics. I mean, I'm surprised that they're making such an overt statement on their website and pointing out that it's fulfilled by Amazon. I think one of the things that people don't realize with Amazon is that I shouldn't say most, but some of the orders that you purchase from Amazon aren't actually fulfilled by Amazon. They're just a middleman that's sending your order to another agency, which is why I think it's important to buy your products from organizations like BSW because they are authorized and they will stand behind the product, and you're also guaranteed that you're not going to get a knockoff.
Right? That's a great point. So yeah, that's a good reason to buy it from an authorized dealer. Let's say that for now.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm happy to partner with companies and dealers, but it goes both ways. So
yeah, but you'd never even have a chance to have a deal with a non authorized source. So the non-authorized sources, they're actually overseas. A lot of them are overseas,
right?
And they're looking for bulk outlets like that fulfilled by Amazon service,
right?
So the chance of buying or having a recommendation from someone like a Chris F. Curran is very, very unlikely.
Christopher. And by the way, I was only talking about I was about to recommend, hey, go to this place and buy one, but I would only do that if I'm partnered with that dealer. That's what I'm saying. I don't want to.
Right.
I see. This is the bane of my existence on this show and Podcast Engineering School. I recommend a ton of stuff, gear, plugins, everything, and my wife and other people keep telling me, why don't you get them to be your sponsor? Right? Why don't they give you a mic and then you can talk about it and promote it? And I'm like, well, no, that would be great. But unfortunately, either I am super lame at developing these relationships, or I don't know. I just don't know how to do that. I mean, if I call up and ask someone for a free microphone, I think they would laugh at me. And I have been denied several times so far. They didn't laugh at me; they just denied me. So anyway, I don't know how to do that. Is what I'm saying.
Well, I think that one of the things that you will have going on for you now is that you're going to start building momentum, because I, as a alumni of Podcast Engineering School, I bought like a couple $1,000s worth of stuff because I needed it. It was valuable stuff that we learned about, and I got to get some hands-on experience with. So is it okay for me to say what I bought?
Yeah, go ahead. Absolutely.
So I bought Isotope RX6. I bought Isotope Ozone, and then I bought a couple of plugins from Wave. Probably a couple of other things I can't really quite remember. But as you start building momentum, you're not going to go to those manufacturers and say, hey, give me some free stuff. You're going to say, hey, a lot of people are purchasing stuff, so why don't I become an ambassador for your product, and I will speak on behalf of your product and also have the ability to sell that product, for whatever commissions, however you want to structure that. So I think that it's only going to get better for you. But I do agree with Muller that you've got to get more entrenched in that stuff.
Right. All right, let's move on to the next topic. And first, let's clean our palate. And Barry, why don't you tell us some history? Tell us about history.
All right, first the Inkers.
All right. You know what? On second thought, let's move on to the Podcaster's Toolbox. Ralph, you and Carolyn have been working on the Podcaster's Toolbox for a while now. You're about to unleash it at Podcast Movement 2017. You're going to have a booth there. You're also, I believe, a sponsor for Podcast Movement. You guys are going to have an awesome booth. And so we need to know Podcaster's Toolbox. What is it?
So the short version is Podcaster's Toolbox is a collection of tools that allow podcasters to streamline their process. So for example, one of the things that very few podcasters say, I love doing that part, is the whole interacting with guests, or the pre-show stuff. Everybody loves talking to their guest about the topics that they're passionate about, but they don't like the whole, hey, do you want to be on my show? And then if the guest says yes, then you've got to schedule it, and then I've got to get their headshot, and then I've got to get their bio, and then I've got to get the link to their website, and then it's a snowball of stuff. So
right.
What our system does is it allows you to manage that process through the app so that you can get your guest onboarded very, very quickly. You're going to give them the information that they need to know. You're going to give them a calendar so that they can book a time with you. If you have show notes or any, rules, quote unquote, that you have for your show, you can give that, the system will present that to your guest, and then everything is ready to go in the system for you, for you to go to showtime. Then on the flip side, there is a social media component that then allows you to put in all of your social media campaigns, and it will distribute that content for you on an ongoing basis. So when you have an episode that goes live, it will post to all of your social channels, and we have the same limitations that anybody would have. So I don't want to get into the little minutia of it, but Twitter, Facebook, all of the various social channels, they all have rules on how you can interact with their platform. So our system will allow you to interact up to whatever the bar is for that particular platform. So it's going to be different for each one, but you will be able to capitalize on whatever is available through their system. So essentially, you can streamline your whole social media outreach right through the system, and then all your evergreen episodes, they continue to be broadcast out. Now, the strength of Podcaster's Toolbox over time is that the more podcasters are using the system, the stronger it becomes, because you will actually be able to mine information from Podcasters Toolbox. For example, you'll be able to find guests. You'll be able to find like-minded podcasts. You'll be able to share episodes of podcasts that you like. And conversely, you'll be able to build these, what we're calling superfan bubbles, where if a group of like-minded podcasters all want to collaborate, they will all share each other's episodes in real time across all of their various channels, thereby giving your podcast kind of an outreach that it wouldn't otherwise have had, because if you had to do this manually, it could be very, very time consuming.
Right.
So we have a much broader vision for Podcasters Toolbox, because essentially we want to try to automate as much as possible. But for the release for Podcast Movement, you'll have the guest management and the social management at the very minimum. And then depending on how the next couple of weeks work out, there might be some additional features that are going to be available. But people are going to be able to sign up at Podcast Movement. So if you're going, come to our booth. You'll have a free account. And we don't have a pricing model yet, which I know is a weird thing to say. So for the foreseeable future, Podcasters Toolbox is going to be essentially free to use for any podcaster. The only requirement is that you have fingers and eyeballs and access to a computer. And
you don't need eyeballs.
Yeah, you're probably right. However, I do have to say that it is going to be invitation only at the outset. So everybody who's at Podcast Movement, if you come to our booth, we'll give you an invite and you'll have an account. If you're not at Podcast Movement, then you're going to only be able to sign up for a waiting list, which might be a couple weeks, might be a month. We're not really quite sure yet. But if you know someone that is already in the system, they can actually invite you in. And that's just a way of us controlling kind of the flow in, because we don't want to have like so many people in the system that we can't support it right at launch.
Right. Awesome. So basically so the reason you designed this whole system of Podcasters Toolbox is because you and Carolyn were podcasting for years, and there's a bunch of stuff that was very annoying, and you're like, someone needs to make an app that fixes all this. So you guys did. What I like is you're kind of combining a virtual assistant who might keep track of all the guests and their headshots and all the show notes, and you're combining like a system like Meet Edgar or Buffer, where, well, actually way better than Buffer, but a system where your posts stay in the system, so it can publish to social media, and then like a month later it'll just publish again, and you can manage that. And so you build up a library of social media posts that never goes away, and then you can manage that library instead of having to literally every day go on to social media and post something manually. And the other thing with posting things manually is a lot of times when you're ready to post on social media, it's not the right time. I mean, I live in the mountain time zone, and a lot of times at 10 at night, I might be, getting ready to go to bed, and I'll be like, ooh, I want to share this, I want to share that. And it's like, dude, it's midnight on the East Coast. Who's going to see that tweet? Nobody. So
right.
The scheduling is very important. And then when you do add the function of sort of teaming up with other podcast shows and sharing each other's content, that's sort of tapping into your past at another company, Triber, right? Which was all about teaming up and sharing and growing your audience that way.
Yeah, with Triber, the focus was really on bloggers and building a tribe of like-minded bloggers. And then all of the bloggers could set up a system, could set up a tribe where everybody was sharing each other's content. So it's very similar in that respect. There's subtle differences, but one of the things that I think is going to be an important ingredient of this is that when a podcaster creates their episode and they create all of their social media elements, they can actually share that with their audience. Because when, for example, on our show, sometimes when someone shares our show, they're keying in, whatever it is that they want to say about that show, perhaps. And, I don't know, maybe they'll make the link wrong, or maybe they'll misspell the name of the show, or if they're posting to Pinterest, what graphic are they going to use? There's all kinds of irritants that can come up that'll make a person not want to share your show. So what we're going to let podcasters do with Podcasters Toolbox is that all of the shareables that you create, they're going to be exposed. You're going to be able to share a link to a page where, that content will be available to anybody on your show. And then going back to the guest part of it, one of the real frustrations that most podcasters have is that when they have a really good guest on their show and they ask the guest to share that show that they were on, the guest doesn't do it. And what we find, and what we found over the past year of researching this, is not that the guest doesn't want to share it. It's just that there are irritants in the way. So, okay, I'm on the Podcast Engineering School podcast, and Chris Curran says to me, hey, share the show. Well, what's the link? What's the name of the episode? What's the episode number? Do you have a graphic? I don't know that stuff. So, when I go off on my own to do whatever it is that I'm doing, I'm not thinking about necessarily sharing your show. So it becomes an irritant if I have to now figure all that stuff out. So what we want to do is we want to take that irritant away, and instead of sending them an email that says, hey, share our show, you're going to actually send them a predefined library that they can just point and click, and then they don't have to worry about writing anything. They don't have to worry about coming up with graphics. They don't have to worry about knowing what the link is. It's going to make it as irritant-free as possible so that you can maximize the exposure of your show.
Nice. I love it. So there, Podcast Movement, you're going to be all set. People can sign up, start using it. And if you're not going to be a Podcast Movement, just find someone who's been there, or even just message me or anybody, right? Anyone who's there, try to get an invite and try it out, because it's not going to cost anything for the first little while, which is, I like that.
Cristobal F. Curran.
I like that.
Will have unlimited invites.
Oh!
So if anybody knows him, reach out to him, because he'll be able to invite as many people as you want. I think that we're going to have a limit on the number of invites. I think every new subscriber is going to have like 3 or 5 invites, but a few people will have unlimited invites.
Hey, and also Barry's waving his hand here in the studio. Barry, you just handed me a note that said that you actually pre-show today, the recording, when we were connected with Ralph and Carolyn, you heard them talking about Podcasters Toolbox in the background. What did you hear?
And they were cussing up a storm. Profanities left, profanities right.
Yeah.
Every
second word was a F word.
Yeah, I'm not going to deny it.
Every second word was the F word. All right. All right. So Podcast Engineering School, we talked a lot about it already, but Ralph, you attended 17A and you graduated. And by the way, and we also just connected the other day because you had a couple questions, and we just connected real quick and we went over some stuff, and we shared our screens, and I think within probably a half an hour we accomplished a lot, and that's just like a random little meeting. But in general and fairly briefly, what would you say your experience was overall of Podcast Engineering School?
Well, to be honest, the only thing that confused me was why we had to not wear pants. That was the part that was... It just seemed like it wasn't a necessary part of the curriculum.
Yeah, oh yeah.
So that might be something to consider maybe modifying for the next session. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out. So I'll work backwards, because I mentioned to you that one of the things I'm planning on doing is going through all of the sessions. There were 7 sessions, and then each of the sessions, well, maybe not each of the sessions, but most of the sessions had bonus material in the form of extra videos that you produced. And the bonus content was essentially a more fine-tuned exploration of a particular topic for that session. So I'm actually going to go back and rewatch all of them sequentially, because I think going into Podcast Engineering School, I had, I studied film and broadcast in college. I was in the film industry for a long time. So I knew I had a good foundation for audio engineering, but I certainly didn't know all of the things that I know now. But going into it, you start to realize what you don't know. And I think one of the things for podcasters, especially podcasters that want to make a career out of producing podcasts, is that it's very easy to get sucked into this mindset that all of the various aspects of podcasting is easy. Because when you hear all of these how-to shows and you read all these how-to blogs, everybody wants to make it seem really, really simple, because they're either selling you a course or either selling you an affiliate link, or, it's easy. And the fact of the matter is, nothing worth doing is easy. And I'm not saying that to diminish the class or the course or podcasting or audio engineering, but there is a skill and there is an art to it. And when I started in podcast engineering school, the first thing that became really evident to me is that I didn't know as much as I thought I knew. And I think that that's the case for my peers who were in the group who I think all of us were in the mindset that, well, okay, we'll probably blow by like the first couple of sessions because you're going to cover the basics and we know that stuff and no big deal. And you realize, oh, wow, there's real stuff here that I didn't know. And you start to appreciate it once you get it in context, which is why now, having gone through the course, I feel like I know how all these things interconnect and I want to go back and revisit those sessions.
Yeah, because like learning the knowledge and sort of understanding the concepts is first. Then it takes time to implement it and sort of work it into your workflow and into your life. And that's where you get the experience, and that's where really the expertise is built in first learning and then doing for yourself. And the doing for the first while is also learning, right?
Right. And the conversation that we had after the course, you have a one-on-one session with every single attendee of that particular session. And the idea is that, okay, well, now we've gone through the 7 sessions. You've gone through all of the bonus material. Now, how do we apply that to your specific needs? So for me, one of my frustrations going into podcast engineering school was that I wanted to elevate the quality of the work that we were doing, but I didn't want there to be a comparable escalation in the amount of time that we were working on stuff. I wanted to decrease the amount of time that we were working on releasing an episode while increasing the quality, which seems counterintuitive. Well, after podcast engineering school, once we did our one-on-one, well, actually it was a 2-on-1 because Carolyn and I were both in the class and we did a 3-way phone call. Between the conversation that we had, between the products that I bought, we're spending a fraction of the amount of time that we were spending producing our podcast episodes, and the quality has gone way up. So, it's worth the investment in the course and it's worth the investment in the tools. And it's like with anything else. If you're going to go out and play golf and you want to play golf at a really, really high level, then the equipment that you use matters. If it's just a hobby and you don't care and you're just going to go out there and just, swing the golf club at the ball, it doesn't matter what you have, But if you really are interested in doing something meaningful on the golf course, then the things that you know and the things that you learn from people who are more knowledgeable than you and the equipment that you use, all of that's going to come into play. And I feel that that's what we've done is we've elevated our game. We understand the mechanics of all the individual pieces, how they all come together. And like I said before, we bought Isotope, the 2 products from Isotope. We bought a couple of, I know that you have like 1 billion plugins, but you do this for a living where I don't really do it for a living. But we did buy a couple of very, very selective plugins that really dramatically cut the amount of time that we were spending doing stuff manually. So, I can't say enough about what a good experience it was for us. And I certainly recommend it to anybody who wants to not only do a good job on their own podcast, but if you're going to be doing producing podcast episodes for other people, you just have to accept, I think for the most part, people that at least I've known, I would say that they need to accept that they probably don't know as much as they think they do. They might have like consumer level knowledge, but they don't have audio engineer knowledge.
Right. And I remember it might have even been after the first class or maybe the second class. I think, you and I have known each other for years now. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, I think it was a comment at the end of the class as we were wrapping up, or maybe you sent me an email or a text or something, and you were like, dude, this is serious. This is like awesome. And I was like, that just made me feel really good that what I'm bringing and what the school is delivering is really, far beyond any other podcasting course that's out there. It's totally different. It's not even a podcasting course per se for podcasters. It's a podcast production for people who want to get into the business and earn some money. In fact, the mentoring sessions I had with each student after the course, which I also have a mentoring session before the course too, which is cool. But most of what I talked about with students in the mentoring sessions after the course was the business aspect of it. Like people were like, all right, this is awesome. I'm a professional podcast engineer now, but how do I get clients? How do I get business? How do I make this? How do I start a company? And so, and that I also enjoy sharing that part of it too, because, you know, I've gone through all that, right? So I'm just feeling good about it. I'm happy that everybody loved it. And so on September 26th, we're going to start the next batch, which will be 17B. And again, there's a lot of money to be made in the podcasting world, especially now. And like I said previously, you know, a lot of these bigger companies who actually have money, they want to hire a professional. They're not going to hire some kid who doesn't know anything, who's wearing his boxer shorts in the basement and, you know, uses Audacity and that's it, and uploads it to Auphonic and that's it. Although there is one. There is one podcasting network that literally told me, because I asked them if any of their engineers wanted to come on this show, and they said, probably not. All they do is upload it to Auphonic.
Oh my gosh.
Whoa.
Well, I think that I would correct one thing that you said, which is you said companies aren't going to want to hire somebody in their boxers in their basement to record their audio.
Oh.
I think you're wrong on that one. However, I think that a lot of companies perceive this as being something that they could do that. But I think that a lot of companies are learning the hard way. They're learning to appreciate the value of having somebody who is a good audio engineer versus somebody who just has, you know, a hacked copy of Adobe Audition on their computer. And I think that as time goes by, more and more companies are going to want to get burned less and less, and they're going to be looking for very specialized people to do, you know, this is a very specialized thing. And I think more and more companies are going to want that versus the guy who's in his, you know, mom's basement, you know, working as a barista on the weekends. So there's going to be more and more of a need. And one other thing I want to mention is that it is an investment to participate in podcast engineering school. There's no question about that. But when you look at the dollars and the cents, because one of the things that you will get as a participant of podcast engineering school is that you'll get discounts on a variety of products. Like for example, I bought Isotope RX6 and Ozone for a deep discount. Once you balance all that stuff out, you walk away from podcast engineering school with all of these tools if you buy them, and you know, it kind of pays for itself. I mean, I haven't done the math, and if I did, it probably wouldn't be good math because I'm horrible at math. But, you know, there is a lot of value that podcast engineering school brings with it besides just the education. So if you're a podcaster or a podcast producer just at the beginning of your career, you know, you need to make some investments. You need to invest in a good computer. You need to invest in the right software. You need to invest in the right plugins. And with podcast engineering school, I feel like I spent quite a bit of money on plugins and tools and things. But the important part of that is that I spent the money on the right ones, which I think is far more valuable than just going out there and just spending a ton of money on stuff that you're only going to find isn't suitable for your needs.
Yeah, totally. And even just the RX6 advanced discount alone, $600.
Yeah,
$600.
That's an amazing tool. I mean,
right.
I'm shocked.
Yeah,
shocked.
Right, totally. All right, so go to podcastengineeringschool.com and go look at the program. You'd see all the details are there. And most importantly, if you have questions and you want to talk about it, reach out to me. We can jump on a call for a minute. I'll tell you all about it. And most importantly, I can find out your situation and sort of explain how this might work for you or might not work for you. So, all right, let's move on. But Barry first. Barry he slipped me another note. He wanted to mention the official meal of the podcast engineering school, right? All right, Barry, just tell him.
Beans, coffee, and biscuit, and a little piece of fatback.
Oh, the little piece of fatback. All right, so we're going to talk about your new headsets, Ralph. You were using PR40s. And you had that whole, I mean, we did an episode earlier. You had the mobile rig and you had PR40s and going into DBX 286Ss, and it was awesome. And now you've changed it up a bit where you now have these headsets, and I think it's the Audio-Technica BPH-S1, which I'll have in the show notes. They're $199 each, and that's what you're using right now, I believe. And now You're much more slimmed down. You're taking these headsets and going right into your Zoom F8, and now you're a lot more lightweight. Did I kind of summarize everything?
Yeah, we bought the Zoom F8. Well, we had the Zoom F8, and we bought Zoom manufactures a carrying case specifically for the Zoom F8, which has a pocket for it and then a pocket for cables and your headphones. And now we have a little backpack that has essentially everything that we need. It's got the 2 headphones, which have the microphones built in. We plug those right into the Zoom F8. We have all of our cables in there. And we bought ourselves a little amp, a headset amp, a Rolls HA204, which is actually a battery-powered amp so that we can have up to 4 headsets plugged in at once. And now we can just kind of be on the road in a much more comfortable way. Our initial intent was that we wanted to have everything that was in our home studio. We wanted to be able to kind of bring that on the road with us. So it was a little bit ambitious, but the problem with that was that it required a lot of overhead. It was heavy. It required power. We were really limited by the mobility of it, even though we perceived it as having, oh, look, we're super flexible now. We can go wherever. And we did. We went to Virginia. We went to Tennessee with it. We went to Florida with it. But it was really, really cumbersome. And what we subsequently learned is that it's not really all about the hardware, because we were trying to get like the best possible sound recordings of whatever our experiences were. So we had our, the little DBX strips, and we had our recorder, and we could gate our audio, and we can compress our audio and all that stuff. And it all sounds great on paper, but at the end of the day, really what helped us the most was, and I hate to keep blowing smoke up your butt, was podcast engineering school. Because now with just a recorder with a couple of microphones plugged in, we can record in a coffee shop, we can record in a car, we can record on the beach, we can record anywhere we want. We don't, since we have battery power, we don't need to worry about plugging in. We don't have to carry this like 800-pound Goliath. And when we come back to our studio with Audition and RX6 and Ozone, we can make it sound like we were in a studio. I mean, we can't, you can't clean up audio like perfectly, but it's perfect enough. And,
Totally.
It was certainly a big learning process for us, but it was worth it for us to go through that experience, because I feel like I appreciate what we're doing more. If I hadn't gone through it, I would just, in my mind, I would just be thinking that this is just like super simple and easy, and not have the tools and the education to kind of compensate for any challenges that we come across. But yeah, now we basically have a 3 or 4 pound bag that goes with us everywhere. And there's very little that we can't compensate for by way of RX6.
Right. Yeah. That's awesome. And you're on one right now. And by the way, I'm still going to just mention all these plugins, my newer plugins, and just comment on each one real quick. We're still going to do that. So, but I first want to tell you about the SonarWorks stuff that I just bought. So SonarWorks is a company, and Ralph, you don't even know this, I don't think. SonarWorks is a company and a website, and which, by the way, I've already gotten a discount for the PES students. Yes, for SonarWorks. What they do is you can buy a calibration microphone and hook it up and put it in front of your speakers if you have monitor speakers in your studio, and you can basically calibrate your monitor speakers. I mean, on this show, we've talked a lot about knowing what you're hearing. That is literally that's the most important thing in audio engineering, period. You have to know what you're hearing, or else you don't know anything. So they sell a calibration kit where you can calibrate your speakers. They also sell headphone calibration stuff. So what you can do is buy a plug-in, but now you can buy a plug-in for your DAW. That's one thing you can do, and just kind of apply it to the master bus. But now they have this thing called system-wide. So literally on my computer now, it's a system-wide, it's actually a virtual instrument is what it is. But basically, it applies this calibration to all the sound coming out of my computer, no matter what it is, no matter if it's in my DAW, no matter if it's YouTube. Any sound that comes out of my computer goes through this calibration. So now when I'm actually sitting at my speakers in my studio, they're calibrated to be flat frequency response. And when I plug in my headphones, I have a different calibration for that. So it's like a little calibration profile. That's what you get for these headphones. And what's cool is they have individual calibration files for like God, 30 or 40 different brands of headphones, different models of headphones. So most likely, the headphones that you're using right now, you could feasibly get SonarWorks a calibration profile for those exact headphones. And then when you listen to your mixes and your podcasts on those headphones, they'll be calibrated to be flat frequency response. So anyway, there's a lot more to it. I just wanted to give, this is like a little thing that I just did for the first time. I literally calibrated my speakers and I bought some new headphones. I brought some very good headphones, the Sennheiser HD 650s. They're a little expensive, not too expensive, but they're really good. And I got the calibration profile for those. So my speakers and my headphones are all calibrated now. And I'm getting used to it, right? Because it's not that much different, but it's different enough where I'm sort of retuning my ears in my own studio. So at times you have to do this. It might be weird for a little while, but right? But I know it's really flat and it's really good. And in the long run, it'll be good. And I'll get used to these in probably a couple of weeks. I'll be used to them. So that's the news there. And like I said, I'm getting a discount for the students because, again, you got to know what you're hearing. So, all right, we're going to talk about the plugins. But first, Ralph, your show, you and Carolyn, you do a show called Carbon-Based Business Units. And it's a podcast where folks can find it everywhere. What's the website for it again?
It's carbonbasedpodcast.com.
Yeah, Carbon-Based Podcast. What I like about your show is, well, you used to do Web Search Social. That was your show, and it was all mostly about marketing, sort of. But you ended up talking about entrepreneurial things and awesome things, and you're like, so you just wanted to kind of rebrand and start again and make it just about like entrepreneurial and life and just, but here's the thing I like about your show. You guys talk about real stuff. I mean, you'll take a story like, for instance, you guys getting kicked out of a restaurant, and you'll apply it to business and life. And I don't know, you guys do a really good job of that, man.
Yeah, I mean, we run 3 businesses, and we don't see some people want to talk about a life-work balance where you're separating your personal life from your business life. And it's not that easy. It's not that easy, and it's not always, reasonable to do that. And especially if you love what we do. We love what we do. We love podcasting. We love our marketing business. We love our software development business. We love our Podcasters Toolbox business. So because we love it, that's going to kind of influence our life. And one of the things that we're doing is we're going to be driving cross country to go to Anaheim to Podcast Movement. And the reason we're doing that is because we're going to make stops along the way. We're going to kind of get new experiences. We're going to podcast along the way. But all during that time, work is not going to stop for us. We're going to have our laptops. We're going to continue to run our marketing business. And, that is something that a lot of people can't wrap their heads around. How do I run my business and maintain a good life and then add on top of that 2 more businesses? So those are the things that we talk about. We talk about our experiences with our business, our experiences with other colleagues. One of the things that I do as kind of a passion is I advise other startups to help them kind of get their businesses off the ground. And that's very rewarding for me, both financially and otherwise. And I like to talk about those experiences because we see a lot of people making mistakes. We make our own mistakes. And I feel that if we talk about them, we have an opportunity to help people not repeat the mistakes that we've already made.
That's awesome. The other thing I love about your show is that listening, I'm hearing the evolution of the quality of the sound just go up and up and up. It's awesome, man.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
You guys are doing great. And not that it sounded bad before. You guys always had good equipment and good sound. I mean, I have to say that since I helped you set up your original studio.
Yeah, of course.
Right? Oh, it was great. Well, now it's even better.
Yeah, and by the way, I think this is a good illustration of you can have the best equipment in the world, but if you don't know the fundamentals, it's not going to sound good. And that's on me. You did your part. You did your part in helping us set up all of our equipment. But, I had a lot of learning to do, which is part of the reason why I wanted to participate in podcast engineering school, because I didn't want to have all of this amazing tech at my disposal and then kind of diminish the quality of it by not knowing the fundamentals.
Right.
There's only so many times I can call you at 3:00 in the morning to be like, hey, Chris, help me out with this audio problem I'm having.
Right. I just thought of a totally inappropriate analogy, like the 17-year-old whose parents buy him like a really expensive Camaro, but he doesn't know how to drive, and then he crashes it. Like this one kid at our high school, it literally after school ended, you know how all the buses are filling up and then the buses leave school? He had a really expensive car, and I guess he wasn't looking or something. He ran underneath the back of a school bus, right in front of the school, right in front of everybody. And it was like this new awesome car, and it was like, it was painful. But that's not a completely accurate analogy to what you were doing. You guys were doing good. You did know how to drive that stuff. Now you've become a professional. Let's put it that way. There's a difference between a professional and an amateur. And they might have similar equipment, but the outcome is not similar. Then that's true with anything. You mentioned a golfing analogy earlier, so which is true. All right, let's talk about plugins. I know you bought a few. I'm going to go over these real quick. Plugins, like you said, Ralph, there's a billion plugins out there, and like I mentioned, probably the main ones you need are EQ and compression to get a handle on your different tracks, your different speakers, and when you're doing your podcast production. There's two that I found that were really helpful. One is called Manny Marroquin Triple D. And Triple D, it takes care of, it has three elements. That's why it's triple. The D boxy, which takes out the boxy frequencies like around 400. Well, probably between 200 and 600, something like that. So the boxy frequencies, it gets rid of that. The D harsher, it removes the harsh frequencies, like right around probably between 2 and 5K, something like that. And the de-esser, which removes any harsh sibilance around probably between 5 and 8K, something like that. So this is a really handy plugin for podcasters because just by tweaking, and it's 3 knobs, it's really easy to use, just by taking out a little boxiness or not. Obviously, you don't have to use them. Like, you can just use the de-esser and just leave the other 2 alone. But having the ability to take out a little boxiness, take out a little harshness, and take out a little some of the sibilance, very handy. And the de-esser part of it is very high quality. Like it's the de-esser that I like most so far, and I've tried at least 5. And I use 2 others regularly. And now this one is my main one. I still use some others because sometimes you gotta apply 2 de-essers to a certain voice, because you don't want to crush it with one, so you do a little de-essing with one and then a little more with another one. But that's a good one. Manny Marroquin, Triple D. And the other one is called Parallel Particles, which is from Andrew Sheps, which I really love his Shep 73 EQ. But Parallel Particles is so cool. It's 4 knobs, and it's 4 areas of the frequency spectrum. So you got the air, which is the really high frequencies, probably 10K and above. That's the air. The sub is the sub frequencies, like probably, I don't even know where the cutoff is. Maybe, let's say 60 hertz and below, maybe 50, maybe 75 and below. That might be considered sub, probably 60 and below. Then you have the bite, which is just like Manny Marroquin Triple D, he had the D harsher. Well, the bite in this one kind of adds that bite. If you need just a little more bite, if the voice is just a little dull, it's just dull, not super intelligible. You could add some of the bite. It's awesome. And then the fourth knob is thick, which is the low mids, or even the low frequencies and low mids. So if there's a voice that just sounds a little wimpy or thin or just weak, you can add a little thickness, and it kind of thickens it up and makes it a little more beefy and nice. So that one, it does it by EQing and compressing. It's sort of almost like a multi-band compressor in those 4 areas, but I'm sure he's engineered it to be more precise than just, it's more than just a multi-band compressor, because it actually boosts EQ as well. But it's very handy. Again, it's just 4 knobs, and you can just tweak the knobs, and if you need a little more bite, you can use it. If you need a little more air, you can add the little air, add more air. So that one's really good. All right. The other plugins are really good. The FabFilter Pro Q2, which is an EQ. And by the way, I'll have links to all these in the show notes. And the FabFilter Pro Q2, we've talked about before on the show, but it's definitely an awesome plugin. And in future episodes, I probably comment on these more. I bought the CLA 76, which is a compressor. It's actually 2 compressors. It's a knockoff of the old 1176. So it's a vintage compressor. And again, I'll put the links in the show notes. You can just click through and read it and watch videos about all these. But I'm very happy with all these. The CLA 2A, which is a knockoff of the old LA2A, it's just a great, simple compressor, but very high quality. The SSL-E channel strip, which is awesome. Ralph, you bought the SSL-E channel strip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So far, the only thing I've used on that is the gate, because I found that it helped clean up some of that, unwanted kind of background elements.
Yeah.
So I haven't gotten too far into it, but the gate is really, really nice.
Yeah, well, it's a channel strip, so it has filters to roll off the low end, roll off the high end. It has EQ, a full 4-band EQ, parametric. And then it has a gate, an expander. Then it has a compressor. And it has a phase switch, which you'll never use. It has some other things too, which you'll probably never use. But it's a channel strip. So like literally, that's one plugin you could get that you could just apply to everything in all your podcast production, and it would be awesome. All right, then you got the PuigTech EQP1A, which is an EQ, which is a knockoff of the old Pultex. Then you have the PuigTech MEQ5. It's named after this Jack Joseph Puig. He's a music producer. Then you have the Puig Child, which is a knockoff of a Fairchild. And then I bought this CLA Mixdown one, which is kind of like a mastering plugin. But for podcasting, I think the one thing it might work well on, and I've actually used it once on this already, is the music. If you have musical elements of your show, and maybe this just needs a little more high end, it just needs to glisten a little more, or maybe it just needs a little more low end, or it's a very simple. It's almost like a mastering plugin, so it's very simple to just tweak the sound. And that one, I'm least impressed by that one. And again, maybe it's because I'm not mixing records. Maybe it's because I'm working on podcasts. But the CLA Mixdown is a good one, but that's probably on the bottom of the list of all these that I just mentioned for that would be helpful to you as a podcast producer. So that's it, Ralph. We made it, man.
All right, so we're going to start recording now?
And you know what's going to happen when the episode's over, Barry? What are people going to experience when the episode's over and the sound fades away?
There's no activity, no giggle, no nothing.
I know. That's what happens after you listen to a session of this show. Excuse me.
You always give me giggle in my heart, Chris Curran.
Wow.
Always. I always have your giggle deep inside my heart.
Ralph M. Rivera, Podcaster's Toolbox. His lovely wife, Carolyn Rivera. Carbon-Based Business Units is his show. We'll see you at Podcast
and by the way,
Movement.
you can go, even though we haven't hit Podcast Movement yet, if you go to podcasterstoolbox.com, you can sign up for the wait list right now.
That's right, and we'll be back next week. We officially start after our break next week with an awesome session. Until then, Ralph, tell them.
I love you.
Sound great! And I love you.
You walk away from me well, and you can't play that part so well. Why do you play it out on me now? You like to lose control well. It's quite a feeling, isn't it? They're floating, drifting down now. You tell me that you found something better. How should I respond to that? It's a lie. I don't wanna hear it. What do you want me to say? It's a lie. I don't wanna hear it. You react some empathy. You change your attitude where you say I just don't get it now. You say your eyes so far away now. Gave up on me where some chance you gave me gave away. You say I wouldn't understand now. You tell me that you found something better. How should I respond to that? Oh yeah, I say now it's a lie. I don't wanna hear it. What do you want me to say? It's a lie. I don't wanna hear sweet things still hold their meaning. And does it mean it's still the same? You're pushing me away. You walked your theories now where you're getting worked up on your now. You walk your way around somehow now. Yes, it hurts me now where that you don't talk to me now. Now that these worlds have split apart now. You tell me that you found something better. How should I respond to that? Oh yeah,